Hi, this is Carl. I've been hanging things on my wall. In particular, I'm hanging some new calendars for next year, and I got to thinking about one of the few calendar-driven things about sales. And in fact, it may be the most important calendar-driven thing about sales. And for some sales processes, it's the most important part about a successful sales process, and that is a campaign. So let's get started. Let's look at campaigns, and in particular, obviously, sales campaigns. No politics allowed. Obviously, the word of the day is campaign. So let's define it. A campaign is an endeavor with a very specific goal, a specific budget, a specific timeline, and a specific theme. Now, some campaigns don't have themes. Those are campaigns. It's really hard to argue that you can even measure them enough to determine whether or not they were successful. So a theme is very, very important. Now, with regard to goals, campaigns might have intermediary goals or they might have secondary goals. So an intermediary goal, for example, would be to, if you have a year-long campaign, to have quarterly benchmarks. A secondary goal would be that our primary goal is to make sales, but our secondary goal is to get people to do demos so that we've got them into the system so that next time we have a campaign, we can focus specifically on people who are already warm prospects or hot prospects. Is that too much information all at once? Because there's a lot to unpack there. So let's open up the box and unpack the campaign. Now, some people wonder, do I really need a campaign? After all, I'm not a huge corporation. I don't have a ton of money. I'm not trying to take over the world. I just want to make some sales. Well, let me give you a bit of an analogy. So imagine that you wanted to start running. Okay, so you've got a track, and let's say it's a 400-meter track. You're like, okay, I'm going to start. So you lace up your really expensive brand name running shoes, and you start jogging around the track. Okay, that's cool. At some point, someone's going to say, you need to measure your time. Like, how long did it take you to get around the track? And you say, I went around the track in 3 minutes. Oh, okay. I'm an old man. I can get around a 400-meter track in 3 minutes. So the question is, what's a good time? Like, what's an appropriate performance? So then you measure it, and you measure it, and you measure it, and then somebody says, let me show you how to start more efficiently. Let me show you how to get the right stride at a certain point. Let me show you how to go around that curve, right? There's strategies that make it easier for you to get better and better and faster. And so eventually you decide, well, what I want to do is I want to be good at this. I need techniques to be good. That's the same thing with the sales campaign. You could send out 1,000 letters and then just see what happens. Many people have told the story. I took somebody's advice. I sent out 1,000 letters. Guess what happened? Nothing. Not one thing. So lesson number 1 about campaigns, you have to be in it for the long run. You have to be willing to do something more than once, get better, fine tune it, and that way you actually can learn over time how to be good at campaigns. So obviously the most important piece of a campaign is the goal. What are you doing with your sales campaign? Remember, we talked about earlier, sales is not marketing. Okay, so marketing, you can have a name recognition campaign. That's all fine. Marketing is money going out the door. Sales is intended to be money coming in the door, right? So your goal has to be something along the lines of how much money did we bring in? How much money do we have as a result of our sales campaign? Now, you don't have to be 100% focused on money. For example, a sales campaign could say we are looking for 17 new clients, or we are looking for 50 people to do a trial run of something, right? That it's a piece in the sales process. So when you think about it in those terms, there is money behind it. For example, you should know the lifetime value of your clients. So if you got 17 new ones, well, that's pretty important, right? I had a friend who recently ran a campaign, and basically their goal was to add exactly $1 million in new revenue, okay? So that's a very clear, specific, measurable goal. The best goals, I'm sure you've heard, are clear, they're specific, and they're time-bound. So you have to be able to measure your sales goals. So start with the big picture. Why are you doing this sales campaign? The next thing we want to talk about is what is your budget for this campaign? So what does that mean? Well, let's say that you're going to do a mailing. Well, it's going to cost you something to buy the list. It's going to cost you something to buy the envelopes and get something printed. If you don't do the copywriting in-house, somebody has to write the letter, or you have to buy it from a service or whatever, right? It costs money, and so you got to figure out, all right, what are we willing to spend on this? One of the most important reasons why you need a budget is that stuff happens. Let's just call it stuff for now. So when something changes and you're like, we bought the wrong list. Well, okay. Now you got to restart a piece of your process. Or the script totally sucks. Or somebody comes along and says, sorry, the thing that you were pushing, we can't offer that next quarter. Whatever. Stuff happens. So you have to remember that your budget might change over time. So you have to figure out, what do you do when you overspend your budget? Now, for the most part, you should be pretty good at figuring out what it's going to cost you to run a sales campaign. Again, one of the real benefits is having that limited time frame, right? So let's talk about time frames for a minute. You could do something where you say, we're just going to do this forever, right? And there are campaigns that essentially just continue on because they work and work and work and work and work. But for most of us, that's not the way the world works. Most of us, we have one campaign and it may or may not be successful. And here's why you have to keep refining everything. Every piece of your process has to do its job. We'll come back to this again and again. But think about a campaign where you say, all right, we got a good list and a bad script. Okay, let's redo it next quarter with a better script. Okay, we got a good campaign, we got a good script, we got a good list. All right, now we have a crappy offer. Let's fine-tune the offer, right? And so you're constantly changing this. Remember we talked about the sales funnel? Well, the funnel is essentially looking at the pieces of the process going from total stranger to a customer who puts money in your pocket. So we're going to use that in a sales campaign to look at metrics. What's the response rate of this group versus that group? You know, dentists versus attorneys. What is the response rate of this offer versus that offer? Of this script versus that script? Of this promotional ad in Google or on a website or whatever? And you can tweak all of these things. So at some point we'll do an entire video on A/B testing, but basically, you know, you've got to put up a couple of different things and say one of these performed better than the other. Let's do the one that better performed. So over time, when you've got a campaign and you've looked at all of the pieces of it, then you can say, okay, next quarter, we're going to get a fresh list and we're going to look at the demographics. We're going to look at all of the things that were part of our last campaign, and we're going to tweak it and we're going to fine tune it, and we're going to be more successful in the next campaign. So what's the big lesson on sales campaigns? Well, it's that you can never stop, right? I mean, at the end of the day, a sales campaign has a limited time frame so that you can keep doing what's called an iterative process, right? You're just going to keep doing it again and again and again. With luck, every campaign will be more successful than the last. But here's the thing. If you find a really, really successful formula, one of the things that we haven't covered yet is documentation. If you document your campaigns, then you know we use this script. You should have a folder where you keep, whether it's Word documents or text documents, keep your scripts. Which script did we use? Were people allowed to vary it a little bit? Is this just a starter script, or is this really, really exactly what we say? What's the order in which you did things, right? Did you ask for a specific call to action? Was it, hey, I want a meeting, or was it, hey, can I send you a sample? Right? Exactly what it is. Document your sales campaign. And that way you can pick one thing to do just a little bit different. And here's the beautiful thing. When you get a sales campaign that works, I highly encourage you to just repeat it exactly the same way next quarter. And I say quarter because a nice 3-month block of time makes it really easy. Having a lengthy campaign that goes on forever, it's really hard to evaluate and fine tune. But if you've got something that is a 1-year campaign with either quarterly sub goals or quarterly campaigns where every 3 months you know you're going to just refresh the top of the funnel, then you can constantly be updating it. But again, let me just say, if you get something that really, really works, do it again and again until the performance begins to drop off. Sadly, nothing lasts forever. One of the great truths in life is that everything changes all the time. So once you get something that's successful, remember, it's only going to be successful until something out of your control changes. And that could be literally the age of the people you're marketing to. It could be the economics of the environment that we are operating in. It could be the invention of some new technology or the presence of alternatives. Remember, your competition is probably not another company trying to do the same thing. Your competition is probably not buying at all, doing nothing, or spending the money on something completely unrelated. So this concept that you have to worry about your competition, I just think is stupid for lots of reasons. But I know people like to pay attention to it. Anyway, lots and lots of thoughts here. We are going to be putting together a sales campaign construction kit. So if you are a subscriber at cheekysalescoach.com, you'll see that paperwork, and I encourage you to go through it and send me any questions you have. In the meantime, everybody should like it, give it a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel, share it with your friends, and do all the fun things that make you successful. This is Carl Palchuk wishing you absolutely the best of luck in your sales campaign. Call to action. Like, subscribe, and ring that bell so you won't miss a thing.